A broke young woman slipped into Carter Innovations and set off a wild chain of events that left the head honcho completely smitten. Before we jump in, drop a comment about where you're watching from. Enjoy the tale. Jenna eyed the towering Carter Innovations building, then glanced at her own reflection in the glass door. Her once vibrant denim jeans had now faded into a dull, lifeless gray. The old backpack she lugged around looked more like a beaten-up shopping bag with a zipper. And don't even get me started on her messy hair. "This will do. I'm just a girl on a mission," she muttered, steeling herself. The plan was simple. Sneak in, drop off a letter for Dylan Carter, and vanish before anyone even noticed. Easy, right? Wrong. First hurdle, the revolving door. Jenna charged right in and got stuck midway, shoving it both ways only to find herself spinning in the opposite direction. Finally breaking free, she collided shoulder first with the front desk, sending a cup of pens clattering everywhere. "Hi, I'm here with a letter," she announced as if it were the most ordinary thing in the world. The receptionist, looking like she'd stepped off the cover of a trendy business mag, eyed Jenna up and down with a look that practically screamed. "Appointment? Badge? Secret code? I've got a letter," Jenna insisted, as if that explained everything. "It's urgent. Dylan Carter needs to see me for a minute." Without even batting an eye, the receptionist pressed a hidden button, and in no time, a security guard appeared, a human boulder who looked like he could double as a walking filing cabinet. "No badge, no entry," the guard grumbled. Jenna glanced from the letter to the guard, then to the elevator doors that had just swung open. Without thinking, she let out a small squeal and darted in, slipping in before the doors could shut. "Hey, come back here," the guard bellowed, taking a couple of heavy steps until he realized that the elevator was already in motion. In her mad dash, Jenna bumped into a guy carrying a tray of coffee, and as the elevator ascended, she frantically tried to brush off the latte foam from her hair. Not knowing which floor to exit at, she jabbed the first button she saw. When the doors slid open, she found herself in a bustling room filled with people sporting headsets, cables snaking along the floor, giant screens, and the frenetic energy of a corporate event gone off script. "Okay, Jenna, just blend in," she whispered to herself. Moments later, she accidentally kicked over a box of equipment, sent a pile of promotional swag flying, got her pant leg entangled on a long strip of tape, and nearly sent a studio light crashing down. "Who's that?" someone in a headset murmured. "Probably a janitor or a delivery person," another replied. "Maybe someone lost a friend in the elevator?" a cameraman joked, trying to find a way out of the confusion. Jenna's eyes locked on a huge door at the far end of the corridor. It had to be the reception or waiting area. Without a second thought, she strode through it. Inside was Dylan Carter's office. Naturally, she slipped on a pristine rug, smacked her hip against the desk, and ended up on her knees right in front of him. Dylan, absorbed in reading a serious document, slowly turned, expecting a courier or executive, but instead he found Jenna, hair disheveled and on her knees, with a letter in hand as if it were an overdue bill. "I knew today would be weird," he muttered, eyeing her like she was a figment of his imagination. Startled, Jenna sprang up so quickly that her knee collided with the desk, eliciting a loud "ow" from her. Yet she grinned, acting as if nothing was amiss. Jenna, I've got a letter for you," she declared, extending her arm with such force it looked like she intended to cross the room in one sweep. Dylan folded his arms and remarked dryly, "That explains why you burst in like you were fleeing a police chase." "Oh, I can't explain," Jenna offered hastily, smoothing her hair to look professional. "I mistook your office for the restroom. Since I was already here, I thought I'd hand you this letter." Dylan raised an eyebrow. "And do you normally enter bathrooms on your knees?" "No, that would just be testing the rug softness. And by the way, congrats on the letter," she added. "Right, the letter. It's from my mentor, Zen Quan," she explained, a little breathless. "He told me to deliver it to you personally, and since I pride myself on being reliable, I thought sneaking in was quicker than dealing with reception." Dylan exhaled deeply. "You really thought breaking into one of the most secure buildings in the city was a professional move?" "I did. I promise. I was so focused on the mission like a ninja messenger." And, well, the receptionist gave me a weird look, and I got a bit jittery. Dylan took the letter, but kept glancing at Jenna as if trying to piece together the puzzle of who she really was. And your mentor? Who is he? He's someone. I can't quite recall his last name, but he mentioned being close to your family. I got nervous during his explanation, Jenna admitted. Right? So you're his, ninja messenger? Dylan said, pointing to a chair. Since you went through all this trouble, sit down. Let's see what's so urgent. Jenna sank into the chair. It was so soft she almost melted into it. Looking around the plush office, imagining the Imperial March playing in her head. Dylan unfolded the letter, but, strangely, hesitated to read it. He seemed more curious about who this quirky girl was, one who turned a simple delivery into a full-blown comedy act, than about the letter itself. Jenna kicked her feet up and watched as Dylan carefully read the note, expecting a dramatic reaction. A gasp, a tear, anything. Instead, his serious expression only deepened, the only change being a slight furrow in his brow. So, this letter is really from Zen Quan? Dylan asked, not taking his eyes off her. Close. Almost got it. Jenna corrected with a playful finger raised. And what are you to him? Dylan prodded, intrigued. I'm kind of his protege, or maybe like an honorary niece, depending on his mood, she replied with a grin, trying to ease the tension. Dylan folded the letter and stared at Jenna for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, he burst out laughing. Not a polite chuckle, but a genuine, boisterous laugh. Jenna blinked, confused. Are you okay? I didn't write anything offensive, did I? She stammered. No. It's just hard to imagine Zen Quan sending such a serious letter through someone like you. Dylan managed between laughs. It's kind of unreliable, Jenna finished, shaking her head. Relax, he says that all the time. Before Dylan could respond further, the office door swung open. A sharply dressed assistant rushed in. Mr. Carter, we need you in the main hall. There's a launch event in 5 minutes, and the spokesperson is missing. Missing, Dylan repeated, rubbing his temples as if a headache was forming. Jenna's face lit up with sudden determination. I can help, she offered impulsively, even though she wasn't entirely sure what they were launching. Dylan's eyes narrowed. Jenna, this event is being streamed live to hundreds of investors. It's not some local talent show. I once hosted neighborhood charity bingo, so I'm basically a pro, she shot back, standing with hands on her hips like a star on mission. Dylan gestured to the assistant. Take her, it's better than having nobody on stage. 5 minutes later, backstage, Jenna found herself surrounded by frantic staff, makeup artists, and a producer barking orders into a mic. Can someone tell me what I'm supposed to do? She asked as a makeup artist dusted her face with powder as if sanding a wall. Just go in, smile, present the product, and get out. No improvisation, barked a headset-wearing woman. Improvisation's kind of my thing, Jenna mumbled, barely audible over the commotion. When her name, though not even a real one, was finally announced, Jenna stepped onto the stage. The bright lights blinded her momentarily, and the audience, dressed in crisp suits and holding champagne glasses as if they were part of their body, waited for a poised performance. Jenna tripped on the first step, grabbed a nearby mic stand for balance, and accidentally yanked the cable, toppling half of the digital backdrop. A collective groan swept through the room. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of, finance, she began, smiling nervously. Well, actually, Jenna, but it seems my badge is off. Tonight, we're here to unveil our newest line. She glanced at the screen, which now displayed a random screensaver labeled the cutting edge, next-gen breathing tech, or something equally odd. She finished with a nervous chuckle. Back in the crowd, Dylan ran a hand over his forehead. Against all odds, he was laughing too. Jenna carried on without a filter. She mixed up product names, botched percentage figures, and when it came time to leave the stage, her pant leg snagged on a lighting fixture, sending everything crashing down. What should have been a total catastrophe turned into an unexpected viral hit. The stiff, corporate audience couldn't help but record and post every mishap online. Soon, the clumsy spokesperson was trending as the most endearingly disastrous presenter ever. After the event, Dylan found Jenna sitting on the hallway floor, clutching her shoes as if she'd just run a marathon of embarrassment. "I told you I was professional," she said with a small, defiant smile. "Professional at causing a ruckus," Dylan replied, arms crossed but eyes twinkling. "Seriously, I was only trying to help. The letter was important, and I guess I got carried away. If you want, I can vanish now," Jenna offered hesitantly. Dylan studied her, a walking bundle of chaos, unpredictability, and sincerity, and shook his head. "No way. Tomorrow. You're starting here," he declared. "Really?" Jenna's eyes widened. "I nearly brought the whole building down today. Consider it a survival course for my team," he joked. "You said you'd deliver the letter in person because you're reliable. Let's see if that holds true." Jenna sprang up, excitement lighting her face. "I promise I'll be the best, whatever my title is," she declared, extending her hand. Dylan shook it, feeling for the first time in ages that something in his rigid world was about to be completely upended. The very next morning, Jenna arrived with a backpack nearly as big as she was, stuffed with snacks, notebooks, and even a flashlight just in case. Passing by reception, she waved at the desk with a triumphant smile. "I'm back, sweetheart," she chirped. "Is this for real?" the receptionist murmured, barely concealing her disbelief. In the executive office, Jenna was handed a makeshift desk next to the copier. "Can you sort these contracts alphabetically?" an assistant asked. "Of course. Should I sort it by A or C?" Jenna replied deadpan. Within 2 hours, she'd spilled coffee on the printer, answered a call she mistook for the intercom, and triggered the fire alarm while trying to open a drawer. Every mishap was relayed to Dylan, and with every new disaster, he couldn't help but chuckle in his office. Jenna had no idea yet that her spontaneous mess-ups were breathing life into Carter Innovations, a spark in an otherwise meticulously predictable environment. For Dylan, this clumsy whirlwind was the first truly intriguing disruption he'd seen in years. Officially hired now, Jenna looked at her improvised workspace with the joy of someone who'd just hit the jackpot, even if her desk was just a repurposed shelf by the copier. "My very own palace," she sighed, placing a small plastic pot with a $3 succulent on top for a personal touch. Just then, the printer erupted into a frenzy, spitting out paper nonstop like a possessed machine. Jenna pressed every button, blew on the sensor, even tapped the panel gently, but nothing stopped the avalanche of contracts. "This is a trap," she whispered, throwing herself over the machine to catch the flying sheets. Meanwhile, Dylan strolled down the hall and witnessed the scene. Jenna, practically hugging the copier as it showered her with paper, gripping a stapler like it was a makeshift weapon. "What else is new?" he mused with a smile. Watching her was becoming oddly addictive, a tiny, unpredictable force in a world of stiff suits and serious faces. Then, as if fate were having a laugh, Jenna's shoelace got caught, and she toppled to the floor like a sack of potatoes. Dylan knelt and extended his hand. "Ever thought about a career in demolition?" he teased. "That could be my backup plan," she grinned. After a moment's hesitation, he added, "I have an off-site meeting now. Come with me." "Why?" she asked. "Because if I leave you alone for more than 15 minutes, you might bring down the whole building," he replied dryly. Yet the truth was, Dylan was secretly enjoying her presence more than he'd ever admit. Later that day, Jenna hopped into a sleek car, carrying her massive backpack and a small succulent she insisted needs its own air. When Dylan caught a glimpse of the plant, the driver, wearing immaculate white gloves, barely concealed his amusement at the sight of a passenger holding a plant and a lunchbox. "Is this meeting at some upscale restaurant?" Jenna inquired. "Something like that," Dylan answered, keeping details vague. Minutes later, they found themselves at an elegant table so pristine that Jenna felt she might shatter it with one wrong move. Dylan was on the other side, absorbed in documents on his tablet, while the waiter handed her a menu in French. "That's a lot of vowels for such tiny portions," Jenna whispered, squinting at the menu. "You don't need anything fancy, just pick something you like." "Do they have a pastry called Koya?" she asked seriously. Dylan nearly choked on his water. "Probably not. No worries, I adapt," she grinned. "Adaptation is my middle name. Well, Sort of. Actually, my second middle name is Disaster. Disaster Adapta Silva. Nice to meet you, she quipped, extending her hand for the first time. Dylan shook it, then asked, "So why did you take this job?" "Honestly, I only wanted to drop off the letter and head home. But then you hired me, and who am I to refuse a fancy gig?" she replied, a note of playful irony in her voice. "You nearly ruined our event," Dylan reminded her. "Oh, but it was fun," she countered. "And look at that. You're smiling now." Mission accomplished. Dylan was silent for a moment before admitting, "I've been smiling nonstop since you arrived." Despite his reputation as the sternest CEO in the city, here he was laughing because of a girl who barely knew how to work a printer. "Why are you so stiff, Dylan?" Jenna prodded. "You walk, talk, even breathe like you're in executive mode, and you never laugh," she said. "I guess I got used to it," he mumbled. "I could never. My life's like a soap opera if I stay that serious. I trip over my own emotions," he added with a grin. "Let's play a little game. For everyone reading, type pizza in the comments if you made it this far," Jenna joked. Now, back to the story. Dinner later turned into an unexpected Q&A session, with Jenna sharing tales of her humble upbringing, her mentor Zen Quan, and a string of failed jobs, like the time she almost fried a flip-flop, mistaking it for a steak. In turn, Dylan opened up about the pressure of inheriting a family empire, growing up under constant expectations, and even forgetting his own dreams. "What was your dream?" Jenna asked, leaning in. "I wanted to be a pianist," Dylan confessed, surprised by his own admission. Jenna blinked. "But you always looked like you were born in a suit," she observed. Dylan smiled faintly. "Maybe everyone has a hidden side." "I like that hidden side," Jenna replied. "Let's find it together." After dinner, Dylan dropped Jenna off at a small house her mentor had lent her. "Thanks for dinner, boss. Tomorrow, I can bring some koya to share." "I'll pass," he said, but Jenna was sure she saw a secret smile on his face. The next morning, Jenna arrived at the office with a box of pastries and a thermos full of tea. She marched into Dylan's office without even knocking. Formality wasn't her style. "Coffee is so last year. Now it's tea with koya," she announced, presenting a tray. Dylan accepted a pastry as if it were a challenge, taking a bite and then laughing. "I knew you liked living on the edge," he teased. Just then his phone rang. "It's about the international partnership contract. The meeting got moved up," he said, his face turning serious. Jenna grabbed a thick folder from his desk, flipping through it and widening her eyes. "Whoa, this label looks like it belongs on a giant bottle of medicine." Dylan exchanged a glance with her, then with the pastry still in hand. "Need help?" he half-joked. "Not if I get in your way," she retorted, dropping her backpack and settling beside him. The afternoon passed with Dylan explaining arcane terms while Jenna translated them into everyday language. They laughed over spilled pastries, bickered over the last koya, and even debated whether chamomile tea really eased corporate stress. Before they knew it, Dylan was starting to enjoy Jenna's quirky presence more than he probably should. Meanwhile, hallway whispers had taken on a life of their own. Rumors about the clumsy girl who barged in were everywhere. Some speculated she was a long-lost relative of Dylan's, while others insisted she was some undercover agent. The one certainty? No one had ever seen Dylan Carter laughing during work hours like this. And Jenna? She was just being herself. No pretenses, no masks, just a missing puzzle piece that somehow fit perfectly into his world. That morning began like any other at Carter Innovations, or almost. Jenna arrived out of breath, dropping half her folders, nearly spilling a cup of passion fruit juice that wobbled like it might explode, and greeting every soul in the hallway as if they were old friends. "Good morning, beautiful and brilliant people," she sang, ignoring the confused looks at her haphazard desk by the copier. There, she discovered an anonymous sticky note taped to her screen. "Jenna, you're the most talked about employee since that intern brought his mom to the corporate lunch. We're either rooting for you or betting against you. Depends on your department. Look at that. I'm famous," she grinned, pinning the note to her Epic Moments board. Before she could fully bask in her newfound fame, the main elevator doors opened and a striking woman stepped out as if on a red carpet. Perfect stilettos, flawlessly styled hair, and a perfume that you could practically track from 3 meters away silenced the hall. It was Veronica Black, Dylan Carter's ex-fiancée, a former model, social media star, and owner of enough drama to fill a primetime soap opera. "Why is everyone so tense?" Jenna whispered to an intern who seemed to be holding his breath. "She's back," he replied in a hushed tone, as if recounting an urban legend. Jenna blinked. "The boss's ex-fiancée? Seriously?" The intern confirmed, his voice a mix of awe and anticipation. Jenna followed the stairs and saw Veronica striding purposefully toward Dylan's office, bypassing all formalities. No knocking, no announcement, just pure, unapologetic entrance. Naturally, Jenna, ever the meddler, grabbed her backpack and pretended to fetch some coffee just so she could eavesdrop. Inside, Veronica tossed her designer purse onto the desk, crossed her arms, and coolly said, "Dylan, darling, I thought it'd be polite for us to meet again as two grown-ups." Dylan sighed and replied without looking up, "Veronica, we already discussed this. You gave me a no and then vanished." "That wasn't a conversation. It was you running away," she shot back. Outside, Jenna nearly spilled her juice as she pressed her ear against the door. "Nothing like top-tier gossip to kickstart the day," she murmured. Later, as Jenna attempted to organize some folders and promptly dropped half of them, Dylan appeared at her makeshift desk. "We need to talk," he said firmly. "I swear I didn't hit the emergency button again." "That was the win," she protested. "It's not about that. It's about Veronica," Dylan continued. "I may have overheard something, that you think there's more between us." Jenna's eyes widened. "More between us? You mean you think there's something going on?" She burst into laughter, slapping her leg. "I can't even figure out how to operate the coffee machine, let alone get involved with the CEO." Dylan was silent, simply watching her erupt into giggles until she suddenly asked, "Wait, are you mad?" "Oh no, not mad. I just never thought you'd be dating material," he teased. "I mean, you're like a penguin in a suit, and I'm a wild parrot with a colorful backpack. We're from totally different worlds." Though his words were clumsy, a smile played on the corner of his mouth. Over the next week, Veronica kept showing up with increasingly absurd excuses, from returning a lost t-shirt to debating old contracts and even offering to donate a vase. Jenna, noticing Veronica's persistence, started inventing grand job titles for herself every time Veronica appeared. When Dylan asked, "Can you grab the sales reports?" Jenna confidently replied, "Of course, after I finish reviewing the quarterly numbers and checking the export charts." Veronica's eyes narrowed. By Friday, she'd had enough and called Jenna for a private chat in the company cafe. Arriving with her backpack, snacks, and a bundle of confidence, Jenna faced Veronica. "Listen, girl," Veronica began, removing her sunglasses with a hint of irritation. "I don't know what you're trying to do, but it's not going to work. Dylan is out of your league." "Relax, Veronica," Jenna retorted between bites. "I'm not trying to steal him. I'm just here existing. Besides, I thought I'd get fired on day 2 too, but here I am." Veronica stomped away, and Jenna returned to her desk, realizing that the more Veronica tried to push her out, the more Dylan was drawn to her. Somehow, the girl who tripped over every cable was turning his orderly world upside down, and he liked it. Monday morning arrived, and Jenna appeared at the office as if geared up for battle, armed with a giant backpack full of snacks and her trusty notebook. Today, she even brought homemade chocolates to build corporate alliances, a strategy that made her feel like a seasoned tactician. "Good morning, corporate world," she announced, handing out chocolates like an overzealous Easter bunny. The staff, already accustomed to her antics, accepted them with a mix of appreciation and trepidation. Meanwhile, in the executive offices, Veronica wasn't about to give up. After her confrontation with Jenna, she began plotting something bigger, a scheme designed to catch Jenna off guard and leave Dylan with no escape. By lunchtime, tensions were high. Dylan invited Jenna out to eat, which for him meant a chic restaurant with glass walls, French waiters, and live piano music. Jenna, stepping inside, felt completely out of place. The chairs were art pieces, the glasses so shiny they could double as mirrors, and even the water came with a floating lemon slice like a mini spa. I should have packed my own lunch, she whispered nervously. Relax, no one's judging, Dylan reassured her, though Jenna couldn't shake the feeling of being on stage. After a few mishaps, dropping a napkin, bungling an order in French, even accidentally requesting a roasted duck that tasted like furniture, she realized that every meal with Dylan was turning into a performance. Why do we feel like we're a spectacle? She asked, noticing the curious stares of nearby diners. Dylan scanned the room and replied, because ever since that rumor started, everyone wants to know who the mysterious girl is that captured my heart. Jenna nearly choked on her water. You want me over? I haven't even impressed my own cat. Dylan laughed, admitting, he only puts up with me because I feed him. Eventually, the meal ended and Veronica made her final move by enlisting a journalist friend to cover their lunch. Soon, a headline appeared online. Cold CEO tamed by unpredictable new hire. Jenna had no idea she was about to go viral again. That afternoon back at the office, Jenna's face was plastered on every screen and phone. Colleagues whispered, shared links, and giggled. What's going on? She asked an intern. You're trending, boss, he replied, showing her his phone. There she was mid-bite with her fork frozen in time. Clearly the worst-timed photo ever. Next to her, Dylan was smiling, a rare sight, and the headline screamed, Clumsy girl wins over the coldest CEO in town. I'm going to be sick, Jenna muttered. Dylan, catching the article at the same time, stormed into her office, phone in hand, a mix of irritation and second-hand embarrassment on his face. Jenna, what is this? I swear I had nothing to do with it, she protested, raising her hands. My home Wi-Fi is so terrible, even a carrier pigeon would be faster, she joked. Dylan tossed his phone onto the desk. This is Veronica's doing. She probably has a whole album of foolproof plans to ruin Jenna. And this is just the first volume, he grumbled. I'm going to fix this, he vowed. But before he could leave, Jenna grabbed his arm. If we try denying it, people will think we're hiding something. The more we deny, the more they believe it. Dylan studied her. So what do you suggest? We do the opposite. We laugh it off. We act like it's the most ridiculous thing in the world because, honestly, it is. Intrigued, Dylan said, show me what you mean. Jenna snapped a selfie of the two, goofy faces and all, captioning it, a cold CEO and his clumsy employee taking over your timeline with his crazy gossip. Dylan's skepticism melted into a smile. Within an hour, her post had gone viral, with the public rooting for the unlikely duo, even if they weren't officially a couple. That night, as they stayed late reviewing documents, and Jenna dropped the stapler thrice, turning a crucial report into a paper airplane, Dylan commented, I've never seen anyone so dedicated to being a walking disaster. It's a gift, Jenna replied, launching a paper airplane that bonked him on the forehead. They laughed, the sound lingering until suddenly silence fell. Jenna realized Dylan was staring at her too intently. As he leaned in, the moment grew tense until Jenna's phone rang with a shrill ringtone. Sorry, it's my mom. If I don't pick up, she'll think I'm kidnapped. Jenna grabbed her phone, feeling both relieved and frustrated. Dylan adjusted his tie, murmuring, no problem. But both knew something almost happened outside the office that day. Veronica, watching from a window with a scowl, muttered, if you two think you're heading for a fairy tale ending, you're mistaken. Yet Jenna and Dylan were too caught up in being themselves, amid clumsy mishaps, silly expressions, and airborne documents, to notice that something genuine was blossoming. The very next day, Jenna strolled and determined to have a calm day, even if calm was relative in her world. With a packed lunch, sour candies, and a roll of tape to mark off her territory at her desk, still that makeshift spot near the copier, she declared, no one's ruining my mood today. But mid-morning, Dylan appeared at her desk with that familiar teacher look, as if returning a graded test. Something's wrong, boss, she asked with a nervous smile. Come with me, he said, leading her to the most private meeting room. He shut the door, and the air grew heavy. Oh wow, if I'd known, I'd have brought my toothpaste. I always wanted a dazzling smile for a firing, she joked. It's not that, Dylan replied somberly. What is it? Jenna crossed her arms. We need to talk about us. Her eyes widened. Us? You mean the duo of corporate disasters? Dylan hesitated, running a hand through his hair. Ever since you arrived, my days have been a whirlwind. I used to know exactly how things would end, and now, I'm not sure what to expect. Is that so terrible? No, it's strange, but not bad, Jenna murmured. After a few silent seconds, she blurted, I won the bet. Dylan jumped. I bet you're not just a walking disaster. I always suspected you had a heart beneath that chaos. I knew you were human and not just a corporate robot. You're completely insane, she laughed, and he smiled back. Insane is living without laughing, he said. Welcome to the fun side. From that day on, things shifted. Dylan's stern facade began to soften whenever Jenna was around. Whether it was a moment when she nearly knocked over a glass door in front of his father, Mr. Carter, a gray-haired man who never cracked a smile, Jenna's quirky charm shone through. When Mr. Carter eyed her backpack full of colorful trinkets, he asked, Who is this? This is Jenna, Dylan explained calmly. She works for me. Jenna stepped forward cheerily. Nice to meet you. Jenna Silva, expert at stumbling into things and currently training as your son's girlfriend. Mr. Carter's face turned ashen. Girlfriend? He echoed. Dylan tried to clarify. We kissed on the rooftop under the moon, between pagoda music and a breathtaking view. Mr. Carter's disapproval was palpable. I need to talk to you alone, he barked. I can leave. I'll just print some papers and maybe accidentally blow up the copier, Jenna quipped as she backed out, bumping into a door frame and disappearing down the hall. Jenna spent the morning dodging Dylan's father's lectures while imagining the scolding that awaited her. Meanwhile, Dylan endured a full-on interrogation. Explain this to me, Dylan, his father demanded, pointing at the door Jenna had just exited. She works here. And why are you kissing your employees on the rooftop? Because I like her, Dylan replied simply, causing his father to furrow his brow as if he'd just been told his son intended to sell off the company to peddle trinkets on the beach. Do you know the risk to our image? Shareholders, the press. I know, Dylan interrupted firmly, but I feel empty without her. His father was left speechless. Later, completely unaware of the storm he'd caused, Jenna ducked into the cafeteria with a tray of macaroni and sausage. The marketing team buzzed around her. So, it's official. You and the boss? The social media manager asked, eyes alight with curiosity. We're just testing things out, Jenna replied with a mischievous smile, an emotional test drive. It might work or crash spectacularly. The IT intern groaned. This is the wildest plot twist since they changed our coffee brand. Later that day, Dylan summoned Jenna to his office. As she walked in, coat tangled, water cup knocked over, he sighed, We need to go over these reports before this afternoon's meeting. Jenna pulled up a chair, but as she sat, one of the wheels slipped and she slid backward like she was surfing on the carpet. I'm fine, she declared, scrambling back to her seat. Dylan pinched the bridge of his nose. How do you turn even the simplest task into a comedy sketch? He teased. Meanwhile, Veronica quietly set her plan in motion. Using her connections, she began whispering to senior execs that Jenna had ulterior motives, that she was getting too cozy with Dylan to advance her own interests. By lunchtime, rumors flew fast. Some called Jenna a gold digger. Others claimed Dylan was falling for a clumsy charlatan. Jenna, oblivious to the gossip, was too busy puzzling over the intricacies of consolidated cash flow. Dylan, can I suggest something? She asked. It scares me, but go ahead. Why not write these reports in plain English instead of mind-numbing financial jargon? Just say how much we spent on stuff we needed versus stuff we wasted on nonsense. Oddly enough, that idea resonated with Dylan, who admitted with a laugh that it made sense. As their closeness grew, Dylan, once a hermit in his office, began reviewing everything with Jenna, even if every meeting turned into a spontaneous improv show. But as they grew nearer, the walls around Jenna began closing in. One afternoon, she was summoned by the compliance department. Miss Silva, a stern woman with square glasses asked. That's me, the employee of the month for tripping over everything and spilling coffee. The woman continued without a hint of humor. We're investigating an anonymous complaint stating that you used privileged info and connections to secure your position by pursuing a relationship with the CEO. Jenna's heart pounded. Excuse me, what? An email has been sent to the committee about your hiring being irregular and hinting at romantic interest. She nervously laughed. This has to be a joke. I can barely operate the coffee machine, let alone manipulate a billionaire. The woman's face stayed stone cold. You need to fill out this form explaining your background and how you landed this role. With a trembling hand, Jenna took the form and left the room, her heart pounding with disbelief. Within minutes, Dylan discovered the complaint. When Jenna finally showed up in his office to hand over the documents, he was already waiting. Why didn't you tell me? He asked bluntly. I thought it was some HR prank, a psychological endurance test, Jenna explained, dropping her bag in exasperation. This isn't a joke. Someone is trying to take you down, Dylan said, arms crossed. I bet my entire stash of cheese puffs I know who it is, he muttered. Jenna, she whispered, it's Veronica. Dylan closed his eyes briefly. Veronica is trying to turn me into the villain of this corporate soap opera. After a long moment, he added, come with me. I'm not going to let you face this alone. Together, they stormed into a board meeting where Veronica was already present. Jenna, full of newfound resolve, made a dramatic entrance, though she tripped over the carpet and was caught by Dylan at the last moment. I've mastered dramatic entrances, she joked. Facing a room of board members who had heard the complaint about Jenna, Dylan stood up for her. I was the one who hired Jenna. No hidden agenda, just honesty and humanity. The murmurs in the room grew louder, and Veronica's face flushed with anger. If anyone here thinks they can ruin an innocent employee's reputation with gossip, they're gravely mistaken, Dylan declared firmly. Jenna gave Veronica a small, cheeky wave as if saying kisses before the meeting ended. Back in Dylan's office, as Jenna collapsed onto the couch in exhaustion, she said, You defended me. That was epic. I just spoke the truth, he replied. Is that a compliment or just a polite way of saying I'm a walking disaster? She teased. A bit of both, he smiled. Tonight, how about I give you a ride? Instead of dropping her at home, Dylan stopped at a busy park. What are we doing here? Jenna asked. You said you needed to remember who you were outside the office, he replied. At a popcorn stand, Jenna challenged, I want to see the toughest CEO in town buying popcorn with grated cheese. Dylan accepted the challenge, and between popcorn, cotton candy, and a paddleboat ride, they forgot, if only for a few hours, the titles, gossip, and corporate chaos. Under the soft glow of park lights, Jenna realized that Dylan Carter, the stoic billionaire, was just a man who had never truly lived. And Dylan saw that Jenna wasn't a storm to be controlled. She was exactly the kind of storm he needed to wake up. Deep down, neither wanted to escape it. The next day, Jenna arrived at the office carrying a box so enormous it looked like she was moving in. With each step a careful balancing act, she mumbled, Need some help? To the security guard. No thanks, just carrying my dignity and a few other essentials, she replied, tripping over the reception rug and spilling everything. Inside the box were a portable coffee maker. She still didn't trust the office machine, a cheesy bread-shaped pillow, and a small pink fan. The receptionist, used to these antics, murmured, Here we go again, as Jenna set up her dorm-style desk on the executive floor. Meanwhile, Veronica was back at it, planning her next move. If the rumor hadn't taken Jenna down, Veronica needed something big to catch her off guard and leave Dylan with no choice. At lunch, Dylan invited Jenna to dine out. For him, that meant a trendy restaurant with glass walls, French waiters, and live piano music. Jenna stepped in and immediately felt out of place. The chairs were art, the glasses so polished you could fix your hair in their reflection, and even the water came with a lemon slice like a mini spa for cups. I should have packed my lunch, she whispered. Relax, no one's judging, Dylan assured her, though she couldn't shake the feeling of being a spectacle. When she tried to order in French, she mixed up her words and accidentally requested a roasted duck that tasted like a chair. You really turn any meal into a show, Dylan laughed. Well, it seems like everyone's watching us ever since that rumor started, Jenna noted. Everyone's curious about the mysterious girl who apparently stole my heart. Dylan replied, half amused, half exasperated. Jenna nearly choked on her lemon water. You mean you're actually smitten? I'm tolerable, apparently, he joked. After lunch, Veronica made her final move by sending a journalist friend to capture every moment of their meal. Later, as they returned to the office, Jenna's face was everywhere, on screens, phones, and whispered conversations. What's going on? She asked an intern. You're trending, boss, he said, showing her a viral photo of her mid-bite, with Dylan smiling beside her and a headline that read, Clumsy girl wins over the coldest CEO in town. I'm gonna be sick, Jenna muttered. Dylan stormed in, phone in hand, frustrated. Jenna, what's this? I swear I had nothing to do with it, she protested. This is Veronica's handiwork. She probably has an album of plans titled Foolproof Ways to Ruin Jenna, Dylan grumbled. I'm going to fix this, he vowed. But before he could leave, Jenna grabbed his arm. If we deny it, people will think we're hiding something. The more we deny, the more they believe it. Dylan looked at her and asked, So what do you propose? With a mischievous smile, Jenna said, We laugh it off. Let's act like it's the most ridiculous thing ever. Show me, he challenged. Jenna took his phone, snapped a selfie of them goofing around, and posted it with the caption, A cold CEO and his clumsy sidekick taking over your timeline. Dylan's skeptical frown melted into laughter. Within the hour, her post went viral, and the public was cheering for this unlikely duo, even if they weren't officially a couple. That evening, as they stayed late reviewing documents, with Jenna dropping the stapler 3 times and accidentally turning an important report into a paper airplane, Dylan said, I've never seen anyone so dedicated to being a disaster. It's my gift, Jenna replied, launching a paper airplane that bonked him on the forehead. They laughed until the silence between them grew heavy. Dylan leaned in as if about to confess something, and Jenna held her breath. Then her phone rang loudly, her mom calling. Sorry, I have to pick up, Jenna said, exasperated. Dylan quickly adjusted his tie. No problem, he replied, but both knew that something nearly happened outside the office that day. Meanwhile, Veronica watched from a window, fuming. If you two think you're getting a happy ending, you're mistaken, she muttered. Yet Jenna and Dylan were too busy being themselves, through clumsy moments, silly banter, and flying reports, to notice that a genuine connection was forming. The next morning, Jenna came in extra early, practically beaming as she floated through the lobby, greeting the decorative statues. Good morning, dear building. Good morning, revolving door, she sang, confidently pressing the button for the executive floor. Her confidence lasted about 3 seconds before she collided with Dylan and his father, Mr. Carter, in the hallway. Oops, she gasped, freezing mid-step. I don't want to interrupt your important father-son meeting, so I'll just hide here behind this plant. Dylan called softly, Jenna, come in. I'm super busy with some vital tasks like color-coding paper clips and naming our printers. Smiling slightly, she stepped in. The tension in the room was so thick it felt like stress had been sprayed all over. Listen, Veronica suddenly started. There's something you need to know. And no, that cheesy bread pillow isn't a band item. I got it from my aunt. Taking a deep breath, Veronica continued. It's about my past and about me and you. Jenna sat on the arm of a couch, sensing this was big. The revenge plan? Go ahead. I'm ready. Veronica revealed that when she and Dylan got engaged, their union wasn't about love at all. It was an agreement between families that even involved a merger contract. Wait, am I in a love triangle or a telenovela? Jenna blurted, I never truly loved Veronica. Our parents forced the merger, and I realized on the day of the rehearsal that I couldn't spend my life in that trap, Dylan admitted quietly. Jenna nearly choked. So you practically left her at the altar? She whispered. I know it was cowardly, but I felt something was off all along, Dylan said, remorse tinging his voice. Jenna managed a wry smile. I guess that makes me the symbol of emotional freedom. Huh? Dylan looked down, then said, I just wanted you to know the whole story. Jenna stayed silent, overwhelmed by the revelation, but understanding that everyone carries messy pasts. For everyone following along, type Coca-Cola in the comments if you get it, she joked. Now back to our story. Just know, If anyone dares throw stale rice at me, I'll fight back with frozen cheesy bread. Dylan squeezed her hand. You're crazy, and I love that. Later that morning, an anonymous email hit the top shareholders with attachments of photos from Dylan and Veronica's past dinners, secret moments from their former engagement, and hints that Dylan was using Jenna to clean up his image while still tied to Veronica. The office buzzed with tension. Jenna, who had just been trying to operate the coffee machine without a meltdown, asked a marketing intern, "Did I just become a meme?" "Not exactly a meme," he replied, showing her the email. Jenna's stomach sank, as if a bucket of ice water had been dumped on her happiness. Dylan soon discovered what was going on. When Jenna entered his office, he said, "Before you say anything, answer me one thing. Is any of this true?" "No, Veronica and I have nothing to do with each other. I'd never use you to fix my image," he declared firmly. "I want to believe you," Jenna said softly, "but I'm not great at trusting. My last relationship was with a pizza delivery guy who disappeared with my change." Dylan shook his head. "Prove it." At lunch, Dylan called a company-wide meeting, from the CEO to the cleaning crew. Jenna huddled in the back as Dylan took the makeshift stage in the cafeteria. "I need to clear something up," he began. "Yes, Veronica and I were once engaged, and it ended badly. But what's happening now between Jenna and me is completely different. There's no contract, no scheme, just two people figuring things out." The room buzzed. Jenna's eyes widened in surprise. And if anyone outside the company thought they could tear us apart with rumors, Dylan warned, they're gravely mistaken. Jenna's brought something to this place that no report ever could, a dose of humanity. The applause started softly, then grew louder. Jenna wasn't sure whether to laugh or cry, so she did both. Later that afternoon, as Dylan and Jenna were alone in his office, she whispered, "Thank you for not hiding me, for letting me be me." Dylan stepped closer. "I'm just a guy trying to get it right with the most wonderfully clumsy woman I've ever met." They kissed, a sweet, awkward kiss that felt just right. "Does that count as a bonus?" Jenna laughed. "Consider it part of your training," Dylan replied, smiling. And there, under the city's twilight, they discovered that chaos and order might just be the perfect match. The following morning, Jenna arrived at work with a glow on her face, the memory of that rooftop kiss replaying in her mind over and over. "Good morning, beautiful building. Good morning, rebellious coffee maker that hates me," she sang as she practically floated through the corridors like the star of her own musical. But as always, her day wasn't free of mishaps. The moment she stepped into Dylan's office, she nearly toppled the glass door and found herself face-to-face with Mr. Carter. "Good morning, Father. Mr. Carter," she tried to correct herself, but it was too late. Mr. Carter, with a scrutinizing gaze fixed on her colorful backpack and quirky style, demanded, "Who is this?" "This is Jenna," Dylan replied calmly. "She works for me." Jenna stepped forward brightly. "Nice to meet you, Jenna Silva, professional klutz, and as of now, your son's girlfriend in training." Mr. Carter's expression turned pale. "Girlfriend," he echoed. Dylan hastily clarified, "We kissed on a rooftop last night, under the moon with the sound of distant music." "That's beautiful," Jenna added with a grin. Mr. Carter's disapproval boomed. "I need to speak with you alone now. I can leave. I'll just print some papers and maybe accidentally blow up the copier. No big deal," Jenna joked as she backed out, bumping into a door frame and vanishing down the hall. The entire morning, Jenna avoided Dylan's father's wrath, imagining the stern lecture he was surely giving. Meanwhile, Dylan faced an interrogation about the implications of their budding romance. "Explain this to me, Dylan," his father demanded, pointing toward the door Jenna had just taken. "She works here. Why are you kissing your employees on the rooftop?" "Because I like her," Dylan replied, firm yet gentle. His father's face contorted in disbelief, as if Dylan had just confessed to selling the company to street vendors. "Do you know what this could do to our image?" his father growled. "I know, but for the first time in years, I don't care," Dylan said resolutely. His father was left speechless, caught between shock and disbelief. Later that day, Jenna slipped into the cafeteria with her tray of macaroni and sausage, trying to remain inconspicuous. But soon the marketing team crowded around her, whispering excitedly. "So, you and the boss, what's really going on?" one of them asked. "We're just testing things out," Jenna replied with a wink. "It's like an emotional test drive. Could be a hit or it might crash spectacularly." The IT intern sighed. "This is the wildest plot twist since our coffee brand changed." Jenna laughed, though inside, she felt a familiar flutter of nerves. Relationships with a billionaire were nothing like ordering takeout. That afternoon, Dylan called Jenna into his office for a serious chat. As soon as she walked in, he looked tense. "Everything okay?" she asked, nervously nibbling on a cookie. "My father didn't take the idea of us very well," Dylan admitted. "My mom would freak out if I told her I was dating a billionaire," he added, even as he tried to laugh off the situation. "I just want to be sure you're ready for this," he said, taking her hand. "I've never been prepared for anything. I stumble, I laugh, I get up and move on. If this works, great. If not, at least I'll have a wild story for the next family bingo night." Dylan smiled. "That's exactly why I like you so much." Over the next few days, Veronica didn't give up. She spread rumors that Jenna was a scam artist and that Dylan was using her to clean up his image. One sensational article appeared with the headline "Corporate Cinderella, Clumsy New Hire or Master Manipulator," and Jenna almost swallowed her toothpaste in disbelief. Later, in the parking lot, as Jenna struggled to get into the car without her skirt catching, Dylan grabbed her arm. "Jenna, I'm serious about this," he said. "I know my life is a mess, but now there's you." They shared a quiet moment, then kissed in the corner of the lot. No interruptions, just the two of them sealing a deal far more important than any contract. In the background, Veronica watched from her car, fuming. "This isn't over," she muttered, digging her heel into the mat. For Dylan and Jenna, everything else faded away. The next morning, Jenna strolled in extra early, practically floating through the lobby with a goofy smile and greeting every decorative statue. "Good morning, dear building." "Good morning, revolving door," she sang, pressing the button for the executive floor with newfound confidence. That confidence lasted mere seconds when she ran straight into Dylan and his father in the hallway. Oh, she gasped, freezing mid-step. "I don't want to interrupt your important meeting, so I'll hide behind this tiny plant," she whispered. Dylan called softly, "Jenna, come in. I'm busy with vital tasks like color-coding paper clips and naming our printers." Smiling, she stepped into his office, where the atmosphere was so thick with tension it could almost be bottled. Then Veronica spoke up abruptly. "There's something you need to know. And no, that cheesy bread pillow isn't contraband. I got it as a gift from my aunt." Taking a deep breath, Veronica continued, "It's about my past and about us." Jenna sat on a couch, sensing the gravity. "Are you ready?" Veronica asked. "I'm ready," Jenna replied. Veronica revealed that her engagement to Dylan was never about true love. It was a merger deal between families, a sham arranged by their parents. "Wait, am I in a love triangle or a Turkish soap opera?" Jenna blurted. "I never truly loved Veronica," Dylan admitted quietly. "I felt something was off from the start. I couldn't stand spending my life in that trap." Jenna nearly choked. "So you practically left her at the altar?" she whispered. "I know, and I regret it, but I couldn't keep pretending," Dylan said softly. Jenna tried to laugh it off. "I guess that makes me the symbol of freedom." "Huh?" Dylan nodded. "I just want you to know the whole truth. I don't want you to hear it from someone else." After a heavy breakfast, Jenna decided to lighten the mood. "Okay, deep breath," she said. "If someone tries to lob stale rice at me, I'll fight back with frozen cheesy bread." Dylan squeezed her hand. "You're crazy, and I love that about you," he murmured. Later that morning, an email hit the top shareholders with scandalous attachments. Photos of Dylan and Veronica from secret dinners, intimate events, and hints that Dylan might still be tied to Veronica for business reasons. The office buzzed with anxiety. Jenna, who was busy trying to figure out the coffee machine without causing a meltdown, asked a marketing intern, "Did I just become a meme?" "Not exactly. A corporate scandal, maybe," he replied, showing her the email. Jenna felt a chill, as if a bucket of cold water had been dumped on her. Dylan soon discovered what was happening and called a surprise press conference. With every major media outlet present, Dylan stood next to Jenna and declared, "I want to set things straight. Yes, Veronica and I were engaged, and it ended badly. But what's happening now between Dylan and Jenna is entirely different. No hidden agendas, no manipulation. Jenna is exactly who she is, and I like her for that. Jenna took the mic and added, I can barely operate my toaster at home. I once nearly blew up my microwave. The room burst into laughter, and the press conference ended with more smiles than questions. For the first time, Dylan didn't care what the media thought. Later in the parking lot, as Jenna struggled to get into the car without snagging her skirt, Dylan grabbed her arm. Jenna, I'm serious, he said. My past is messy, but now there's you. If things go south, I want the office coffee machine deal. They laughed, then shared a kiss. This time, uninterrupted, just the two of them in a quiet corner, sealing a deal more important than any corporate contract. Veronica, watching from afar, fumed, this isn't over, while secretly plotting her next move. The next day, Jenna arrived at the office determined to keep things calm. With a packed lunch, sour candies, and a roll of tape to mark her territory at her improvised desk near the copier, she muttered, No one's ruining my mood today. But by mid-morning, Dylan appeared with that familiar look of a teacher returning graded tests. Something's wrong, boss, she asked nervously. Come with me, he said. Leading her into the most private meeting room, Dylan closed the door. Oh wow, if I'd known, I'd have brought extra toothpaste. I always wanted a dazzling smile for a firing, Jenna joked. Dylan's tone turned serious. It's not that, he said. It's about us. Jenna's eyes widened. Us? You mean the corporate disaster duo? Dylan ran a hand through his hair. Ever since you arrived, my routine's been turned upside down. I used to know how my day would end, and now every hour is unpredictable. Is that a bad thing? No, Jenna whispered. It's strange but not terrible. After a moment of silence, she burst out, I won the bet. Dylan jumped. I bet you're not just a disaster. I always suspected you had a heart beneath the chaos. I knew you were human, not just a corporate automaton. You're unbelievable, she laughed, and he smiled. I just want to be with you, even if my life is a series of stumbles, he said. They kissed again, this time tasting like victory and a hint of cheesy bread. Jenna's secret snack. Veronica, however, wasn't finished. After being pushed out of the company, she began contacting journalists, alleging that Jenna was a scam artist using Dylan to salvage his image. That night, a sensational article appeared. Cold CEO tamed by unpredictable new hire. Jenna had no idea she was about to go viral once more. When they returned to the office later, Jenna saw her face splashed on every screen and whispers filled the hallways. What's happening? She asked a gossiping intern. You're trending, boss, he said, showing her his phone, a picture of her mid-bite with Dylan smiling beside her and a headline proclaiming, Clumsy girl wins over the coldest CEO in town. I'm gonna be sick, Jenna muttered. Dylan stormed into her office with his phone in hand, a mix of irritation and embarrassment on his face. Jenna, what is this? He demanded. I had nothing to do with it. I can barely get decent Wi-Fi at home. Even a carrier pigeon would be faster, she joked, raising her hands. Dylan tossed his phone on the desk. This is Veronica's handiwork. She's got an entire playbook titled Foolproof Plans to Ruin Jenna, and this is just volume 1. Jenna rubbed her temples. I'm gonna fix this, Dylan interjected. But if we deny it, people will think we're hiding something. The more we deny, the more they believe it. He looked at her. So what do you suggest? Jenna grinned mischievously. We do the opposite. We laugh about it, like it's the most ridiculous thing ever. Dylan crossed his arms, intrigued. Show me, he challenged. Jenna grabbed his phone, opened the camera, and snapped a goofy selfie of them making silly faces. I'm posting this with a caption. A cold CEO and his clumsy partner taking over your timeline with crazy gossip. Dylan's initial skepticism melted into a chuckle. Within the hour, her post went viral, and the public was on their side, even if they weren't officially a couple. That evening, after another long night of document reviews, complete with Jenna's endless mishaps turning a report into a paper airplane, Dylan said, I've never seen anyone so dedicated to being a disaster. It's my signature move, Jenna replied. Well, you knew that from day one, Dylan said, pulling her close and kissing her in the hallway in front of everyone. Was that a movie scene? A cafe worker asked. No, just another day with Jenna, Dylan replied with a smile. Soon after, Veronica's plan unraveled. An obscure clause in the merger contract between the Carter and Black families, stipulating that if Dylan broke off the engagement, the company would incur a massive fine, was invoked. That day, Dylan received a court summons. Jenna found the opened envelope on his desk and nearly collapsed. Is this serious? She asked. Absolutely. If I don't marry Veronica, the company could face a lawsuit that'd affect everyone. Jenna's heart sank. What are you going to do? She whispered. Dylan looked at her, eyes resolute. I don't know yet, but I'm not losing you. Jenna forced a smile. For the first time, she realized that love alone might not fix everything. But if there was one thing she knew, it was that you don't take down a determined, clumsy girl easily. Taking a deep breath, she marched to the bathroom to think and to grab a snack, because nothing makes sense on an empty stomach. Sitting on the toilet lid, munching on a squished granola bar, she muttered, Okay, let's break this down. First, I'm in love. Second, the guy I like might have to marry his scheming ex because of an ancient contract. Third, I'm just a girl with a bright backpack and zero corporate experience. And fourth, I'm not going to let this end like every other disaster. I'm going to crash another party if I have to. Brushing crumbs off her pants, she strode back into the office with the wild determination of someone ready for the next crazy chapter. Dylan, meanwhile, was drowning in crisis meetings with lawyers, shareholders, and consultants. The mood felt like an executive funeral, and every decision seemed disastrous. Paying the fine would cripple the company, and marrying Veronica was unthinkable. Jenna marched into a meeting room and declared, I can fix this. Dylan looked exhausted. Jenna, now is not the time for one of your wild ideas. Actually, now is exactly the time, she shot back. This isn't just about contracts and money. It's about wounded pride. And pride can only be healed by something powerful, public humiliation. The lawyers exchanged glances as if witnessing a miracle. Jenna leaned forward. Trust me, you hired me for my chaos. Let's use it to our advantage. Dylan sighed, knowing that stopping Jenna was like halting an avalanche. What exactly do you have in mind? He asked. Something epic, chaotic, and humiliating enough that Veronica will never recover her credibility, Jenna explained. That night, she rallied the employees in a secret group chat, originally meant for pizza debates, which soon turned into the intelligence hub for Operation Takedown Veronica. Guys, do you trust me? She asked. The responses were a mix of reluctant nods and exploding emojis. Perfect. I need videos, recordings, anything embarrassing Veronica ever did at our parties, meetings, or behind closed doors. In less than 30 minutes, Jenna compiled a dossier. Veronica complaining about the company's holiday party food, calling a senior director a dinosaur in a suit, tripping over her own skirt and dousing her designer bag with champagne, and even an audio clip of her laughing and admitting she only agreed to the engagement for magazine exposure. Now we just have to drop it at the right moment, Jenna grinned devilishly. The next day, during a mediation meeting with lawyers and family representatives, Veronica sat smugly until Jenna, dressed like a low-budget spy with a cap and sunglasses, interrupted. Excuse me, can I show you something? She asked. Dylan warned her, but it was too late. Jenna connected her phone to the IG screen and played the embarrassing clips. First, Veronica stumbling, then complaining about the food, and finally, the golden recording where she admitted she never truly loved Dylan. The room fell silent. Only Veronica's anxious breathing could be heard. This is an invasion of privacy. Veronica fumed. That's rich. You're the one who spread nasty rumors about me. Jenna shot back. The family lawyers, who secretly detested Veronica, tried to hide their smiles. This changes everything, one murmured. Dylan pulled Jenna's arm and let her out. I can't believe you did that, he said, half in awe, half in disbelief. I know it was underhanded, but look, it worked. Veronica's credibility is shot. Dylan stared at Jenna, then laughed. "I've known from the start. You were a wild card." In the hallway, he kissed her in front of everyone, and a nearby snack cart worker asked, "Was that straight out a movie?" "Just another day with Jenna," he replied with a smile. Later that evening, Veronica disappeared for a while. The controversial clause was reinterpreted, and since the marriage had never been a genuine requirement, but only a far-fetched interpretation by the families, the multi-million-dollar crisis evaporated. Jenna became a hero at the office. The group chat was even renamed Jenna's Guardians, and she was awarded the title Queen of Corporate Chaos. That night, Dylan and Jenna went out for dinner. No fancy restaurants, just a food truck selling pastries and sugarcane juice. "I still can't believe you solved the legal crisis with gossip videos," Dylan laughed. "I told you, I specialize in chaos," Jenna replied. Veronica, defeated, reached out to him one last time.